So, welcome back to the podcast. I have got a familiar face back, Paul Owen from True Sales. Paul, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Dean. Good to be here.
So, I thought I'd bring you back on because obviously sales is a big topic. I obviously want to dig into how you got into sales a little bit more, what your journey's been with sales, some of the learnings you've got, and give some nuggets of stuff for people to consider. But just before we get into it, I thought, just tell us a little bit about what you do day to day these days. What does True Sales do?
Okay, we help people to grow their revenues by selling better, quite simply. So a lot of our work is with corporates where they have sales teams of between 6 and 20 people, and we're going and help those sales teams. And sometimes it's working with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who have set up their business and love the product and service that they offer, but have failed to realize the importance of sales in actually generating revenue.
Okay. So how did you get in? I mean, what was your journey into sales? Because I know there's more kind of stuff now about sales training, but how did you get into sales and what was your first sales job?
I didn't get into sales until I was 32. I was completely broke. I don't know if I've told you, I was earning £8,000 a year doing data entry at the post office in London for that. I had 9 credit cards with a total of nearly £30,000 worth of credit card debt and couldn't pay any of it off. I was living on a mate's bedroom floor. It was all quite dire. It was pretty bad. All my own fault, like all my own creation, nobody else to blame. I just messed up my 20s entirely, career-wise. And so at 32, I eventually kind of came to my senses and thought, come on, I need to get a job. And then I found it difficult to get a job because who would hire a 32-year-old with no track record of anything much? And a lady called Tricia Mason took a punt on me. She gave me a job selling property in France. So I worked for a company called VE, which stood for Vivre en France. And I started on December the 4th in the year 2000, a date I'll never forget. And that job changed my life. Completely and utterly changed my life. 3 years later, I paid off all my debts. I bought my first property with my then girlfriend, now wife. And that's how I got into it. So someone took a chance on me. And yeah, it was quite a big moment. It's probably feeds in a little bit to what I do now, Dean, because as you'll know from previous chats we've had, a bit evangelical about sales. Like I think every single person should learn how to sell. Doesn't matter what job you do, you'll be more effective if you can communicate persuasively with people. I think it should be on the national curriculum. I've done over 100 lectures at universities around the UK trying to say to people, listen, learn how to sell. Everyone leaves school or college or university knowing nothing about sales. You can do a degree in business studies in the UK and there's not a single module on sales in there. And so that's how I got in.
My first business, actually, I started my first business very excited, as everybody is when you start your first business. And I started it really excited about this business and how I could do all these things for customers. But I massively at the time underestimated the importance of being able to sell properly and sell effectively. And I know, the word sell, and I see this, I get very nervous about saying the word sell, especially on LinkedIn because of like the loaded connotation of it, the way people think it means doing things a certain way. And I nearly ended up going bankrupt because I didn't know how to sell and I had to get a job. So I resonate with the story. I didn't go bankrupt, but at 18 years old, I was 6 figures in debt. Yeah, because I just didn't know how to sell. And weirdly, I ended up getting a job for somebody I owed money to. They decided to give me a job in sales. And I had no idea what I was doing. But you're right. I mean, just your story a little bit more, just so that people get a kind of familiarity. You obviously started that job. You didn't suddenly overnight learn how to sell. What were some of the first things you had to figure out what to do to actually make a sale?
Wish I had a great story for you, Dean. What happened is I joined a company, overseas property, so selling French property to Brits and Irish buyers. The market went mad. the market just exploded. So I started in 2000, between 2000 and 2005, 2006. So leading up to the credit crunch, that market went crazy. So I joined this small family company. There were 6 people working there, Dean. They've been around for 18 years, pretty stable, ticking over, I don't know, let's say £500,000 a year, something like that. And nothing crazy, but 3 years later, it was 3.5, 4 million a year. And at the time, I thought it was me. I thought I was great. Oh, I've revolutionized this family company. Look at me. Aren't I amazing? But then when I look back on it, it was just the market. The market just went absolutely crazy. People felt very wealthy in the UK. They were releasing equity from their houses because prices had gone up so much. So when I look back, I actually think I was more of an operations director rather than a salesperson, because it was about being able to scale and keep the wheels on whilst you're going from 6 people and 2 salespeople to, I don't know, 12 to 15 salespeople, 12 lawyers, all different, maybe 50, 60 people working for the company. So when I look back at that, I got a lucky break, right? And that kind of thing. But perhaps a more pertinent answer to your question is, I think I was ready. I mean, it was about time I was ready. I was 32, right? Start earning some money. But I'd shied away. You mentioned that, sales being a dirty word. And I'd shied away from it. People had said to me, you get on well with people, you should look at sales. Oh, no, I'm too good for that. That's a messy business for people less qualified than me. I was so well qualified. I was doing data entry for £8,000 a year at the post office, right? So I should have always done it. So somebody asked me in my gym the other day, if you could talk to yourself as an 18-year-old, what would you say? And I said, go get a sales job. Guys, I probably always should have done it. It just took me 14 years longer to get there. And I realized, and by then, I hadn't been selling proactively in what I would call sales, but I was a grown up. I've been communicating for a long time. I understand, I think, enough of the dynamic of, not talking at people, trying to listen to people, give them the floor to talk, and people will tell you almost everything if you let them talk, as you're now finding out with me. And you just let them talk, and then, just try and isolate the bit that's going to move them to take action, and show them that you can do that bit for them. And so I think I was ready. And I look back, and I'm not believing in destiny and all that stuff. And if people believe in it, then great. It's just not something I believe in. But I just think that lots of things that I already had coalesced and came together. So when I got that job and I got that lucky break, I was ready. And I was good. I got lucky with the market, but I was good. I was good at doing what I did. I loved France. I loved talking about it, and so on. But and I was also hungry, which we'll probably come onto at some stage. Like, boy, was I hungry, because I was absolutely broke. I didn't mention part of that story was that I'd actually met my wife by then, who was a successful investment banker with Goldman Sachs. And it just hadn't worked out. And she wants me to always say, when I talk about this, that she didn't come back to me because I got a job and started making money, but we were just at completely different stages of life. She had a 2-bedroom flat in London and drove a sports car and worked for the world's biggest investment bank. I was calling her up going, hi, just thought I'd give you a call. What are you up to at work? And she's like, Paul, I'm on the trading desk at Goldman Sachs. Like, stop calling. And I still remember, if I just tell you that story for a second, I still remember the day or the evening, whatever, she called me around, but listen, this is not going to work. I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to end this. And I got it. I completely understood. And I remember saying to her, the great shame is you never really met me. Like, this isn't me. And I've just not quite worked out yet. And then, we did get back together. Then I got that job. Then it completely changed my life so quickly. But the hunger and the skills I'd learned and the desire I had, along with the motivation, just all happened in one go. And those 3 to 4 years completely changed everything in my life forever.
I mean, it's interesting you say that. I mean, it's interesting, like, something you said there, like, actually you needed probably brutally a bit of a kick in the teeth to actually get you to move and do stuff. And I know I'm like that sometimes. Like, there's stuff I know I should be doing and I don't do because it doesn't hurt right now.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that kind of, to put it brutal, getting dumped by somebody you really cared about was the thing that went, fuck this, I'm going to do it?
I don't think it was that, because I think I was already there. It's just when you're at that stage, and I get it now because I've hired lots of people since I've been working in sales and so on. And usually, if someone's washed up at 32 and in the shit, there's a reason, and that reason's going to keep repeating itself. And I think I was just unusually messed up for 32, but not completely messed up. I just got it wrong. I made some bad decisions over a 10-year period, if you like, and just assumed that things would work out. So I don't think so much Claire finishing with me was it. I was interviewed on another podcast recently about this. I think I was embarrassed, Dean. I found it
Mhm.
embarrassing to be in the position I was in. I think that
Mm.
embarrassment drove me. And, I had good friends and they'd all had proper jobs, gone to university at the right stage and got proper jobs. And they'd go skiing each year and they'd be eating in restaurants and drinking in bars. And I couldn't go there because I just literally couldn't afford it. They stayed my friends. They didn't ditch me and so on. But I was just embarrassed and I find myself, avoiding conversations about work. So I think it was a sense of embarrassment that
Mhm.
actually became a major driver and meeting new people. And I think men perhaps a bit more than women, when they meet people,
Yeah.
ask about what work you do. It's just embarrassing. I do data entry at the post office. I'm 32, and yet I look and sound and feel just like you, Mr. Investment Banker, Mrs. Management Consultant. Like, I feel like you, but I'm not at that stage. So I think that level of
There's a
embarrassment
there's a
drove me.
healthy level, though, of looking at somebody and going, "I am just as capable as you," and you sometimes need that looking at somebody, not the kind of jealousy point of view, but
No,
like,
no,
hang on a minute, there's something wrong here. There's a mismatch between who I am, what I'm capable of, and where I'm at compared to somebody else. It's kind of healthy to see that.
completely. And it's not competition with them, not to beat to them. And I think particularly for me, it was like, I shouldn't be here, which I knew that I can be there. And just staying on the embarrassment thing, I think it was quite good because it drove me, but it also was internal. I wasn't blaming other people. I was embarrassed at where I'd allowed myself to be, and it was just deciding, right, this isn't the end. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to make something happen, but I know there's a way. And that level of confidence, I think, mattered. And so, for the first time in my life, I started selling myself. I started calling. If I'd known you back then, I would have been calling you. You got any jobs going? Have you got anybody that you know is looking to hire? Like, just, I was going
Mhm.
to friends. I go to friends of friends of friends. I go to contacts of contacts. Like anyone who would see me for a coffee, a Diet Coke, a beer, whatever, I'd go and meet them. As it happened, none of them hired me. But by the time I got that interview for that French property company, I was on fire. Like, I knew how to sell myself. I knew what I was doing. I knew what they were thinking. And all the stuff that now I train people. Like, the obvious objection when you have somebody like me at 32 coming in is, why are you in this position at 32? You can't ignore that. You got to get it on the table. You got to talk
Mhm.
about it and actually say to people this. You got to flag up to them that you're coming in on a £20,000 salary. You're low risk. You're going to find out really quickly if I'm any good or not. So it's not a £20,000 risk. It's a £6,000 risk. You're going to know in 3 months if I'm going to work or not. And I think it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that it was going to work because, I worked hard.
And so just thinking about that going into, and I want to take a tangent here because there's something that happens. I get a lot asked to me on LinkedIn, and it's also something I see with a lot of kind of salespeople as well. And I wanted to get your perspective on this. So if you're a small business owner, for an example, and maybe you've got a lot of referrals, and then you've got a sales team that's often used to a lot of inbound, it's kind of the same problem. And I wanted to ask you, like, if you've been used to that kind of inbound or referral model business, what do you think is like the biggest struggle if you're used to that way of operating to now go, actually, I need to drum up business? So I'm going from, I want to say order taking, but I know that's an offensive term
Yeah.
to some people. But you know what I mean?
No, no,
Like,
no,
if you're getting
exactly.
lots of inbound.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but I did actually read or watch something you put on LinkedIn about the danger of referrals, and and you were spot on. And what I love about the content, well, the content you do generally, but that one was, even for me as a salesperson and a sales trainer, it was a good reminder because I'd realised that the point you were making, which I agree with, is you can get a bit sloppy. Because when you go in on a referral, oh, Dean has said you're good. They already think you're good. So as long as your prices aren't a mile out, you're going to win. You will win irrespective of how well you sell. And that was a timely reminder for me because my business is growing. I am getting new clients. I'm just delivering my biggest global project ever at the moment to a client that came to me cold, albeit that was a warm lead by the time I spoke to them. It's still cold and a long pitch process and so on. Is you have to dust off the muscle again. And that's what you don't have with referrals, which is, it's wonderful to have referrals and repeat business, etc., and all that kind of thing. But you definitely get lazy. You get lazy with the way you sell, which was the point you were making in the post that I'm referencing. But you additionally, and again, what you do with your business with people, you've stopped working the muscle of lead generation. And you just end up in the loop that you'll hear again and again and again with people that you help, I'm sure, which is, oh, I'm really busy at the moment. It's great. I just haven't got time to sell anything. And then you speak 3 months later, oh my goodness, Dean, everything's like just stopped completely. And now I'm doing pipeline, but people don't want to buy for 3 months or 6 months. Of course they don't. From the moment you make first contact with somebody until the day they hand over some money to you, there's a period of time. And you lose the habit, I think 2 habits, the habits of lead generation, however you do it, through LinkedIn, through calling people, through networking, doesn't really matter. But if you're not doing it all the time, you'll run out. And you have feast or famine, and then you never build up enough money in the bank. And secondly, you don't actually sell, because by the time you walk in, they're already sold. And you have to go back to remembering this person doesn't know me. I've got to give them reasons to buy from me. I've got to be better than the person I'm up against is the key as well. Because when you go into a sales process, I don't really think on this team, but I think when you go into a sales process, so for me, if I'm talking to someone about sales training, they've probably already decided they're going to do sales training.
Yeah.
I didn't call them or post them on LinkedIn. They go, oh my goodness, I've never considered sales training before, ever in my life. And I read one wise post from Paul Owen, and now I'm transformed and I'm going to launch an annual training program. They're already thinking about it. And then they come to market, and then you're in a competitive tender situation, however you wrap it up, because they're going to look at other people in the market. And so then it becomes about market share. You have to be better than the next person.
And I think that you're onto something there. If you've been used to that inbound, warm introductions, somebody almost recommended and saying you should work with this person, you forget all of those things that you have to do of going, why us? Why should you buy from us, not somebody else? And I think it's quite dangerous, especially if I'm working at the moment with a sales team, getting them to implement social selling. And they've had a lot of kind of website inquiries. And so the sales people would just pick them up. And now the company's going, well, we're not getting as many of those anymore. We need you to go outbound. And most of the people have never gone outbound in like years.
Yeah.
And it's like, you used to do this, but you kind of get, out of the rhythm of it. I do like a little bit of outbound every day, and you get used to the rhythm of having to do it. Have you come across that kind of like fear in salespeople of going outbound?
Mm-hmm.
I know
Completely.
you generally work with outbound teams, but
Yeah, I do a lot with outbound teams, but I also work with non-salespeople. So this big global project I'm doing now, I won't mention the company name in case they don't want to be mentioned, but they are a big team of project managers, quantity surveyors, cost consultants, kind of. So professional services. They don't do any BD. All right, so they're good. They're about a 250 million a year business, a decent sized business, but they don't do outbound. And so this training program is about doing outbound. And I can still remember pitching to them, and they said, "Oh, we've got this sales process and all these different templates of how to make an outbound call and how to follow up, and this." And I remember saying to them, and I think it's probably why I won the pitch, Dean, was your plan's wrong. Your plan's not going to work. Like, you're asking people who haven't made an outbound cold call in their life, people who their lip curls at the idea of selling, that they hate the concept. And you're going to bring me in and say, right, this is how to make a cold call. You're wasting your time. They won't do it. What you have to do is first start with, we have to win. We called it winning the hearts and minds. You've got to get their buy-in to this idea of actually introducing the idea of more business to people. And the best place to start with doing that, and I say this to any solopreneur, any small business ever, go to the people that you already know first. Like, stop trying to get new money from new people. It takes time. There's a cost of acquisition. Go out to people. If you want to get used to doing outbound, then start with the easy ones. Start with people that you've worked with before. Start with contacts. Then ask for introductions from your contacts and your clients. And then you start to work the muscle a little bit. Now you might be capable to actually say, calling people up isn't that bad. We're pretty good at what we do. And all we're doing is introducing what we do to people. And we're using a phone call as well as a LinkedIn message or whatever it might be. But to go from really don't like selling to thinking you're going to make 25 outbound cold calls a day, It's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. And I mean, I say it slightly sort of in tongue in cheek, but I just see it again and again. So people do listen to this and they go, no, I will do it, Paul. You won't. In almost all cases, 99.9% of the people who think they're going to do it, they won't do it. Because what they'll actually do, even if they start, is they won't be able to handle the level of failure that comes with it. So I'm picturing this person who's got a business that may be bringing in somewhere between 100 and 200,000 pounds a year, maybe, and they've only ever sold to referrals and so on. They're not used to failure. And so then you start doing outbound activity and you get nothing. You don't get a sniff, and it's just, you're gonna stop. And then you started a policy you weren't willing to stick with. It's like the diet or the
Yeah.
exercise regime that you started in January and it's finished by mid-January. Like, you're not going to stick with it, and it's not the best use of your time. And that has an additional knock-on effect that you now have lost belief in your ability to change because you set yourself a target that was too big and you failed. And we're really good at reminding ourselves that we failed. And, oh, you can't do this. And then you get a referral that comes in and suddenly you've got another few quid until the end of the month and you're okay again. But
Yeah.
be smart about this. Recognize what you can do and sustain rather than trying to be a person that you're simply not.
Yeah. It's like we fall in love with the outcome and then we'll say we'll suck up the process. But then when we actually do the process, we're really not prepared for it. I often say in my kind of workshops, I say sales and marketing is the only industry where you have a 95% failure rate. If you were an architect and 95% of your buildings fell down, you'd probably be in prison. It's a tough old gig to go, I do a lot on the marketing-y side, but you can write things, you can put things together and you can think this is the best thing since sliced bread and you put it out in the market and the market judges you quite harshly.
Mm.
And you've kind of got to get used to a level of failure and a level of learning what works in real time.
Yeah. And also be realistic. I don't want to keep quoting you back to you, Dean, but I think you had something this week that I read about not worrying about the billion people on LinkedIn. If you win 10 new clients this year, it'll revolutionize your business. That's what you're looking for. And that's the upside. That's the flip side of the point you just made. Yes, it's a 95% failure rate. So just recognize you're going to have that. But the upside is one or two people, like one person, even let's say one person every quarter. For most small businesses, like one yes every quarter will add a significant percentage to your revenue and an even bigger percentage to your profit because you've already got your fixed costs. And so, once you're covering your fixed costs, then clearly revenue is a much higher percentage of profit that comes over your baseline. And that's the joy of it. The joy is actually thinking, one client paying me, I don't know what, different people have different businesses, but one client paying me £5,000 to £10,000 a month. I mean, one a quarter in a year's time and 2 years' time. Wow.
It's a very good
That's
business.
a massive uplift. I don't need, and and we always have to remind ourselves, I have to remind myself, even though I train people in this, win one a quarter. And people might say, oh, it's not ambitious enough. No, you're not going to stop. It's not like if I win somebody in the first week of a quarter, that, oh, that's it, I won't bother anyone. No, just make an achievable target to win one new client a quarter and then start breaking that down and what's the activity you need to do that and commit to it. But yeah, the flip side is loads of failure. The upside is one successive quarter changes your business in 2 years' time.
I love the feeling of you win a new client. I really love that feeling. It's like, yes, it's like, so, but sometimes, I was at an event and there was an American lady and her husband speaking. I can't remember, Andrea, the name escapes me. And their whole concept that they were talking about was they were trying to get business owners to reframe that failure rate. And they said, no is one step closer to yes. And their little phrase was, go for the no. In other words, I'm going to get some no's today. And then the yes becomes a surprise. Whereas I think sometimes I know it doesn't matter. Even some, there's one type of outreach I do on LinkedIn and I get about 20% of people agreeing to go on a call with me because of that type of outreach. But I know I'll get the 20%. So I'll get one or two calls booked per day. And out of the week, there'll be maybe I'll get one of 50, 40% of those people to 30% of those people will become customers. So by the time you look at that number, you go, hang on a minute. I've done, 25 to get 3 customers, round about
Mm,
that, say. If I quit because of those negatives and no's, the good bits never happen.
mm,
And I'm not licensing everybody. Go and pummel everything that moves and everything that breathes with pitches. Go for the no. There is this kind of, I think there's almost like a weird kind of conflict within us that, and I feel this too still, that we know that it's not 100% successful in anything that we do. And by successful, I'm meaning a sale.
yeah,
Because there's lots of other things that happen that we can't see. Like if you post on LinkedIn, it's helping, even if it doesn't lead to a sale. It's building brand, it's building awareness, those kind of things. But we'll park all of that kind of intangible stuff. So if I put something out there, I know mentally, I know nothing I do will be 100% successful, and barely will it be even 90% successful in some cases. So mentally, I understand that, but emotionally, I don't. And I think that's the conflict. It doesn't go away. I want it to be, my emotions want it to be 100% successful.
yeah, completely. And you have to have a disassociation. So there's something that took me a very long time to learn, and I think for many people that you work with and you've met have the same problem, is particularly if you set up your own business or you're a senior person, a key person in a business, then in part you cannot get away from the fact that the success of the business is partly a reflection of you. And that means you have to accept that any failure in the business is also a reflection of you. But you have to just ignore that stuff and recognize that when people say no to you, they're not rejecting you as a human being. They just weren't ready on this day at this time to pay that price to purchase the value that you offer. And it took me, I'd say probably decades, Dean, not years, to recognize I am not tied as a human being to how many sales I make. It wasn't right that day. It wasn't a right match. And it's really, really hard to do, and people get quite down about it. And there was a lovely piece, I'm sure you've seen it. There's a speech that Roger Federer gives. It's been all over social media, talking to university graduates. Have you seen this one where he talks about percentage failure? So
No, I've not seen it.
I don't know if you follow tennis or not, but Roger Federer, one of the greatest of all time, and he was saying that as a successful tennis player, who's being a bit modest there, is one of the best of all time. He won 84% of the tennis matches he played across his professional career, but he only won 54% of the points that he played. So even as one of the most successful tennis players in history, I only won a few more points than I lost. And so what you realize with that level of failure is that in the moment of the point, there is nothing more important to you than that point. You have to win that point in that moment. But when the point finishes, whether you won it or whether you lost it, it's gone. You have to move on immediately and now focus on the next point. And I loved it because I'd been thinking that for about the previous 10 years. So like, you have to have this duality of thought in business and in sales, which when you're fighting for a deal, you fight, you do everything in your power to win that deal. But when it's gone, it's gone. I lost a massive deal last year. It would have been my biggest deal by miles. And I partly lost it because I messed up. But I won't bore you with it, but I messed up a little bit, which played a part in me not getting it. And I gave myself maybe a couple of hours one evening of a bit of cursing and you idiot and, talk through it with my wife. And it's gone. It was, I don't know what it was. It was maybe somewhere between 100 to 200,000 pound deal. Big deal for me. Lost it. But once it's gone, it's gone. Like you can't, there's no productive way in just mulling over, why didn't I do this? And why didn't I do that? And so on.
Mhm.
So we have to have this weird mindset where I don't think you can go so detached that you don't care if you win or lose. I think you have to care because that drives you to put in the detail and to do things properly. But once it's gone, it's gone. And just on the same point, I was thinking when you're talking earlier about the failure rate and so on. And again, I think it applies to lots of people in the earlier stages of trying to grow their business. It's a brave thing to do, but we have to start focusing more on qualifying people out of our pipeline rather than qualifying people in. Because just to say to people, hey, I've got this really valuable thing. Might you be interested sometime? Oh, yes, I'd definitely be interested. And then you, oh, look at that pipeline. Look at that pipeline. No, it's not pipeline. That's just people who haven't really thought about it, saying that one day, possibly at some stage in the future, they might consider buying from you. And you just waste so much time on them, as you'll know from some of the people that you work with. Have they got enough money? Have they got a need that's strong enough? Can you, if they're going to market, are you, a really good option? for them. And if you're not, then I had another big job last year that I didn't really go for and didn't get. But I kept saying to them, like, I'm the wrong match for you. Like, what you're looking for, I'm not that company. We don't do what you're looking for. And they kept saying, no, we really want you to do it. And I said, listen, I'm not doing a pitch for you. I'm not doing a proposal because that takes days to do a good proposal. I'll meet you. I'll talk to you about how I train people, and I'll share some thoughts on the challenge that you face in training your people. And, no great surprise, Dean, I didn't win it. But I'm comfortable with that because I didn't put loads of effort into it. I was never going to win it.
Mm.
It was just never going to be there. So qualify people out rather than qualify people in. And if you lose a deal, and so the bit I liked about the, look for the nose. If you lose a deal, much better to be losing deals than not even having deals to talk about. Like, if you're losing deals, you're talking to enough people, you're doing stuff, you're trying to push yourself out there. If you look back, the question I often ask myself, and I'll end on this point, on this section, if you like, was when I'm struggling a little bit, maybe a new business, I ask myself the question, how many people have said no to me in the last month? And if that is a negligible number, I haven't asked enough people.
And let's say, I'm going to ask you a tough question before we wrap up. Let's say somebody sat here right now and going, they had big plans for the beginning of the year. They know March is creeping up on us and they go, I really need to build some opportunity here. I need to drum up some business. What would be the 3 things you'd tell them to do?
Number 1, work out who your buyer is. Too many people try and sell to everyone. It's just nonsense. You can't sell to everyone. Not even global brands sell to everyone. Work out your ideal client profile. I often reference Charles Tilly at the menswear brand, where they have this ideal client called James Whittaker, who's a 45-year-old stockbroker, lives in the home counties, etc. So work out, who are the people. If I get in front of them, there's a really, really high chance that I'm going to be able to sell something to them. So that above everything. I've made that mistake loads of times. So work out who your buyer is. Secondly, will be start small. Don't try and have this massive campaign where you go out to everyone. It's just a nonsense thing to do. And so the general advice I give to small businesses is speak to 5 people a week. That's it. Just start with 5 people a week and talk to, message them, email, phone call, whatever it might be, networking. Just set a target of 5 a week. Nobody can tell me they don't have time to talk to 5 people a week. And what was my last one? My last one was probably something I got from you a while ago. So ideal client profile, going after certain people, and just keep everything really, really simple and recognize the way humans buy. The way humans buy is not, oh, I've never heard from you. Now I know you. Here's some money. It's a step-by-step process. Get on their radar. This is all familiar stuff that you've definitely helped me with as well. Of, invite them to a webinar, invite them to a meeting, send them a bit of thought leadership, ask them to do a survey. It's a step-by-step process. If somebody, when you first speak to them, agrees to engage with you again, there should be a pathway that you just take them little by little by little through that pathway. And it doesn't mean if they say, oh, can I hire you and pay you top dollar in your first conversation? Of course, the answer is yes.
Yes.
But don't expect that. Expect to have smaller steps. Those will be my 3.
Awesome. And I 100% agree with them, because I think more and more now as well, people want to get to know you before they buy from you. That's always been true. But I think now, trust isn't what it used to be. And you can't assume that everybody is a decent human being anymore, that people are more cautious and want to know you for a little bit longer before they dive in. Paul, this has been awesome. I'd love to get you back on again, because every time you come on, your story, your experiences, your advice is just really useful to people. So thank you for coming on. And for those of you listening or watching, please go and check out Paul on LinkedIn. He puts loads of great videos there. He's got a really brilliant course about helping you get really good at sales. So go check that out too. And Paul, thanks again.
Thanks, Tim. Great to speak.